Hello, everyone. So I just wanted to say a quick Torah about this week's parsha. Um, so in this week's parsha, there is a idea that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is gonna bring. If we do the right things, then Hakadosh Baruch Hu brings brachos. If he doesn't, if we do the wrong thing, then Hakadosh Baruch Hu is gonna bring klalos onto us, and it's inherent in Parshas Bechukos as well. And the main kasha I think that needs to be asked on this parsha is that when you have klalos of the caliber that we're talking of, right? That someone eat their child, their children is just terrible to such a twisted degree. It seems like you say that the the it, the institution of Bechira is double-sided. So in other words, if I say that when you do something positive, you do a mitzvah, you're relating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, without the inverse of it, it won't be meaningful. So if I don't have the option not to relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not to do the mitzvah, if I had to do the mitzvah, then when I do it, it's meaningless because I didn't really choose it because I had no other choice. So Bechira always has to work with the inverse. So therefore, it seems that for us to have this idea where there is, don't do the mitzvahs, so Hakadosh Baruch Hu is going to curse us to such a high degree, right? 7 times what we did wrong. It's Parshas Bechukos, it's a sheva chatosechem. It seems to invalidate the entire yesod of the way that Bechira works. Like we just said, that Bechira has to always operate with the inverse being possible. And then Stam, besides for the fact that it takes away the meaning of doing the right thing, so what will be the right, so the kasha would be, what meaning is there to us doing the right thing if we don't do the right thing, we're going to be, killed and slaughtered and our children, all these different things that says that it's going to happen to us, chas v'shalom. So there should be no meaning to us doing the right thing, because if we don't do the right thing, we'll be so clobbered that just nobody in their right mind would do any avera, right? With these klalos happening, so it doesn't really make that much sense. That's number one. And the second thing is, stomach goes against the institution of bechira. Bechira means I have a choice. I could do one thing or the other. You're telling someone that, imagine you tell someone that if they do averas, then they're gonna have to chas v'shalom eat their own. I mean, it's inconceivable. So of course they're not gonna do the wrong thing. So how is this not going against the entire institution of bechira? So to answer this question, there's a very fantastic yesod that has to be. It's a little bit of a hard thing for people to maybe come to terms with, but it's a tremendous yesod, and that yesod is that as Jewish people and as Bnei Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, we do not work with a clean slate when we come to work on ourselves and grow. In fact, if you ask someone, when did you come around, right? When did you begin to exist? If that person tells you that he began to exist when he was born, that's a very, very delusional statement, right? A person doesn't come into existence when he was born. He comes into existence when the metzias of what he is began. And the metzias, the reality, the essence of what a person is a Jew, and therefore he began when Judaism began, right? And in fact, even on the most basic level, which is DNA, there are very unique variations that occur within Jewish people, the Ben Av Mitzvah Yaakov, right? The Jewish people that is different from anybody else. And there's scientific evidence to back this up, that essentially over time, when a certain people commit to ideas, concepts, and makes sacrifices for them and gives it over to their children, the ideas eventually become ingrained in the DNA of the individuals, so that it becomes that there is a tendency to that the concept becomes part of the way that they operate, even on a biological level. So you have like a study that says that 58% of organ donors are Yidden, and that is not no shaykhs. They're not religious Jews; they're just Jews. So and that's because the Gemara, there's that's Mishnah Avos. It says Kosh Eno, he said Baishan or Gomach Salim, and one more. He's not Mibno Shalom Ravinu, right? Which is the idea that there are certain ideas that make you a Ben Avram Avinu. And that's true on a metaphysical level and on a biological level. So we have to understand that born as Jewish people, we come in our identity structures predefined. There are certain things that we will have tendencies towards, we will feel better doing, and it will be more expressive of what we are as Jewish people, because we come predefined, and that is true biologically, even biologically. And therefore, the aside of the teretz that this kasha, which I think, if you look at it, simply speaking, it's a tremendously difficult question. The aside of the teretz for the question is that the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is never going to let us go, we're never going to let us drop the relationship with him, is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a shvuah to the avos. Now, the dynamic of the relationship between an av and a bain, even on an individual level, and also on a klal level, on a Klal Yisrael national level, is that a father has certain midos, and he does certain things, and the son sees those things, and even in his DNA, he imparts aspects of what he is into the child. So the word for ben is the shorosh of the word binyan, which means to build, which means that a son builds on his father. So on a national level, what is important to realize is that the underlying basis, the foundation of Yiddishkeit was laid out and created by the avos based on what they were. So therefore, a Yid will want to do chesed, will have a fierce sense of justice, right? So many Jewish judges, right? Desire for truth, right? So all these different things that come from the avos, they are the bedrock of the aside of what it means to be a Jewish person. The overarching Jewish identity, this is its basis. This is what it's based on. And therefore, so when we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a shvuah to the avos, that he would never abandon his children, what it really means is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a shvuah kaviyachol to the reality of what the avos were, which is the concepts that they represented and embodied, which allowed them to have their unique relationship with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, since those exist within us, that is what drives the need and the shvuah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made to the avos, because we are the banim of those avos. And you see this by Geulas Mitzrayim, where Chazal say that the reason why we're nigal is because we didn't change our clothes and our names, and we didn't intermarry, and we didn't change our language, which none of those things are religious ideas. That's just us, Jewish people, being committed to what we are, to being Jewish. That's what those things were. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Mitzrayim. And the reason he took us out of Mitzrayim, as Meforsh in the Psukim, is because of the Shavua. So you see that the schos that the Jewish people had to go out of Egypt was that they stayed committed to being Jewish. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a Shavua to the Avos, who created Judaism, that he would never forsake them, and therefore he took them out of Mitzrayim. Right? So that's the structure. So therefore, what we end up seeing is that there's the following insight. Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has two main ways in which he relates to the physical world, right? There is an hashgacha pratis and an hashgacha klalis. Hashgacha pratis works that, obviously an individual Jew can decide to defect. He can decide not to do mitzvahs. And, depending on what levels it gets to, it can even be that he doesn't get olam haba. Right? And that's bechira, and that's fine. But on a national level, on a klal level, as the Jewish people, there does not exist that idea of bechira. The Jewish people cannot choose to not be in a relationship with Kadosh Baruch Hu. That is not a choice that they can make. And we see that we've tried over and over and over and over. It's the one thing Jewish people throughout history have tried again and again and again and again. They tried to not be Jewish. They tried to not be in a relationship with Kadosh Baruch Hu, and it always backfires each time. Every time they get murdered. I mean, we understand this. This is clear. We see this throughout history. The patterns of history are clear. Whenever the Jewish people try to not be Jewish, they suffer for it. And it always backfires, which is because that there is no bechira for the Jewish people as a nation to decide to not be Jewish. That does not exist. That bechira does not exist. And what I'm trying to be masbir in terms of the Av-Ben dynamic is that the reason why that's not even on that level of violation of the concept of bechira is because the components that comprise our identity, what we are as Jewish people, does not start with the choices that we make personally in our lives. It starts with the choices that were made to begin the identity of Judaism, part of what we were born into or chose to become part of. And those yesodos are more basic to who we are than the decisions that we make. Now, it doesn't mean the decisions we make are less relevant, but it means that they have to be thought of and understood in light of a bain, which is a binyan, right? A son is a bain, and which is a binyan, you're boneh on what the Av laid the foundation for. It has to be understood in light of that. There isn't an idea that you can say, okay, I'm just going to recreate myself completely, and I can decide anything that I want to be. That doesn't exist by Yidden. Right, and this is the chashivus of yichus is this idea, the idea of yichus, right? That there's an idea that the fact that someone comes from a certain thing. Who cares? Who cares who you come from, right? It always bothered me on a personal level. So what? So it came from, this or that person. What does it matter? What does it matter where I come from? But the answer is that person has a large part of him that's predefined. So of course it matters where you come from. Each person throughout history doesn't start off with a blank slate. Even on a biological level, there are presets of ideas, emotions, feelings, mechanisms, and ways of operating and relating to the world that are more natural and basic to the way that a Jewish person will end up operating than for non-Jewish people. And we have to understand that at our point in history, we are banim, we are children, which means that we are meant to be building on top of an operating system, so to speak, of an identity that already has these mechanisms that the Avos laid out as taken for granted. Chesed, justice, emes, all these concepts are already part of the Jewish identity. And we have to build on top of those. And therefore, it's not, when we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring the close on us to the point that we decide to do teshuvah, it's not the pshat that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is forcing us to do teshuvah. Because what it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu swore to the Avos, it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, the Avos, you guys created the formula of self-expression and concepts, and with those ideas and formulas, that is the recipe to relate to me. When you have them, boom, you can relate to me. And I swear that that's what will happen. Since you guys did that, we will always be in a relationship. And we are those things. It's not a choice. We are those things. And therefore, it's not a violation of our bechira to do those things and to have the clothes come, because the the those things that we're getting back to, that the klalos get us back to, is the initial presets that are part of what we are, in terms of the fact that we had avos, and those avos represented the ideas that allowed for a harmonious relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is why it's not a violation of our Bechira, because our Bechira means that we have the ability to be and to choose who we want to be, right? That's what the Rambam says, that a person has the ability to be a tzaddik Moshe or a rasha Kirevim ben Nevat, right? A Bechira does not mean that we can choose to do one action or another, as, this is already a famous concept, right? Because you say that, you go to a restaurant, you choose between, a burger and, schnitzel. You didn't just use your bechira. You didn't just use your free will to choose between a burger and schnitzel, because there is no consequence to whether you have a burger or a schnitzel. So you didn't use bechira. That's liberty, right? That's not choice. Choice means I can make a decision and create the fabric of what I am. I can decide what I want to be. And that is of consequence, and that is life forming, and that is what bechira means. And therefore, we have to come to accept that, to a very large degree, we are predefined. We are banim. We are meant to be building on top of a preset construct that were laid out by constructs that were laid out by the avos for us to build on top of. And there's another possible teretz, and maybe you can say with this teretz or even without, but that say that the klalos are not pshat, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying that He's going to bring upon us these klalos as curses, but rather He's saying like this: the way of the world was that everyone was constantly fighting each other and trying to dominate, lands, etc. And therefore, if we're in a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so then HaKadosh Baruch Hu does nisim, and we come out on top. But if not, then we're left to the devices of Derech HaTeva, and in Derech HaTeva, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that these things will occur. And if you look at Tanakh, that is definitely one viable way of understanding what happened. When a lot of these curses in Parashat Ki Savo came true. So that is another possible thing to say. So you can either say it with the answer or without the answer that I said previously. But I think those are the main yesaidas, and everyone has a great Shabbos.